Welcome to Rising Voices. This is a podcast series that celebrates the quiet power, deep wisdom, and soul filled resilience that we have as sensitive women. I'm your host, Jess, the creator of Sensitive Women Rising. In each episode, I'll be sitting down with a sensitive woman who has chosen to rise, not by being loud or forceful, but by becoming more of who she truly is. These conversations are real, tender, healing, and so brave. And they're here to remind you that your voice matters. Your sensitivity is sacred, and you're not alone. So grab a cup of something yummy, snuggle under your favorite blanket, and join us as we share our hearts together. I am so honored to welcome Krista Bueller on the podcast today. Krista is a poet and a deeply intuitive educator. She's a woman who has done the brave work of returning to her voice after seasons of silence. Through her poetry, she's found a way to say the things that once felt unspeakable. And in doing so, she opened a pathway not only for her own healing, but for others to begin finding their words too. She also brings that same tenderness into her work with children. She helps them name their emotions, speak their truth, and grow up believing that their feelings are not too much. This conversation is powerful and tender. And before I begin, I want to offer a gentle note. This episode does include mentions of addiction and sexual abuse. So please take care of your heart and honor your needs as you listen. Krista's story is truly one of resilience, creativity, and quiet courage. I'm so grateful to share it with you today. Let's dive in. Hello, Krista. I am
Hi,
so
Jess.
glad to be chatting with you today. How are you?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
Good. So, I am just so excited to hear more about your story and how you got into being a writer and how your sensitivity has just really played a role and how you express yourself, how you communicate through your beautiful poetry. And yeah, to just really use your story to inspire others. Because I know there are so many women in my audience who just are beautiful writers and they maybe sometimes feel a little afraid to use their voice. So I would love to hear how you got into all of this and like what strengths have really played into you, just really using your voice in this way. So, but first, I love to celebrate. I love to talk about all of the good things in our life because that really helps us to just embody ourselves with so much love and compassion. So, the first thing I would love to know is what is something that you are really proud of right now? Something that just feels so good, even if it's really small, but something you're just so proud of in your life.
Um, I feel like it's actually the opposite of small. I feel like it's huge.
Really? I love it.
Um, I'm really, really proud to be walking the life of my wildest dreams. I feel like there was a time where I felt like a magnet for struggle and I felt like a magnet for pain. And I couldn't see how I could get to those dreams I would have. And now I can sit on my deck on my home at the ocean and watch my kids running off in the distance and have such a loving, supportive partner and sisterhood around me. And just think like, whoa, like I'm here. Like I made it here to this place. And I just feel super proud that I was able to be resilient enough to find my way to this place.
Wow. Yeah, that gave me chills. I love that so much because that is definitely the goal. We want a life that feels good like that. And I heard you mention that there was definitely some struggle to get here. Could you talk to me a little bit about what that looked like and how you were able to kind of wade through that to get to where you are now?
Yeah, I think it starts out by being born to a couple of teenagers. My parents were very young when they had me, and I know that they were always giving it the best they had. So I do want to say that before I go any further. They've each come from their own hard experiences, and that shaped them into who they are as well, right? But my father did struggle with addiction, and That was across many means, kind of an addict in all lanes. And that was very difficult because I was growing up with them, so to speak. I was more of a parent to my father than a daughter. And as a young girl, it took a toll on me in the feeling of like, I can't save him. Why am I failing at this? Why can't I take this addiction away? Why am I not good enough to make the change? And so things really started there for me, and that is where I formed a very deep-seated people pleaser, perfectionist type of woman, where I was on a path to make other people happy, and I was kind of put behind. And so that led me to experiences where I really wasn't looking out for myself. And even as far as finding myself in a few situations of sexual abuse where my only option or what I felt like I could do was to say nothing, to not ruffle feathers, to not cause a problem, to not break up friend groups, to not, stir the pot. And so shoving it really deep down inside my body was really all I thought was possible. um, it wasn't until I had children and I was married and I moved to this home I mentioned on the ocean where those secrets came bubbling up again. And I thought I had done a really good job of keeping them at bay, but it was now out of my control. My body started getting really sick. I had a lot of symptoms and illness. And after trying to research and find out, through the medical system, labs, tests, all the things, nothing was really coming up as like the root of that problem. And I think that's when I started to be like, okay, there's a connection here because every time I would say something or just even open that wound a very little bit, there was healing happening there, physical healing, as well as emotional. And so as a little girl, through my dad's addictions, I wrote a lot of poetry about how that felt. And when I was young, it was just a natural thing. I never showed anyone. I didn't talk about it because everything was a secret in our home about what was really going on. And so I didn't know that that was really an important part of me yet. And then that kind of went dormant as I lost my way. But once I came back to this opening and I was really ready to face what had been buried, poetry was pouring out of me. It just wouldn't stop. And actually, a lot of the times, I'd write a poem and read it back to myself and realize I didn't even know that about myself. I was learning about what I'd been through my poetry as well. And so it really felt like my body's voice, and it really felt like it was communicating to me what I needed to hear and what I needed to face.
Mm.
And so as that was unraveling, uh, it was profound for sure.
Wow.
Profound.
Wow. You brought me to tears. That is so, so beautiful. And I love how you have learned how to listen to your body and how to honor your body. And I can tell that you've done a lot of work on healing because you can speak of your story and know that it doesn't have that power over you that maybe
Yeah.
it once did. And that's hard to get to that point. It is a lot of
Oh,
work,
yes. Oh,
but
yes.
would you say that it's been rewarding, that it's been worth it?
Yeah, it has. I mean, there's always that like duality, right? Like to get lighter and feel more weightless in your burdens, you have to go to those really ugly, dark, scary places. And so I can definitely say that I haven't always felt like this. um, but that I am so grateful to have been brave enough to feel and really sit and sink and hold space for that dark and heavy, that hard stuff. I always say that healing, it's not like this linear process, right? It's the spiral. And when it comes to my sexual abuse, every time I ride or every time I am sort of thrown into that darkness, it's a different experience. It's something else being uncovered.
Mhm.
And so the last round that I had, I found that it really connected me to my voice, and I was able to say what had happened without shame. And that was the first time that that had happened for me. And so, yeah, I'm definitely proud of the work that I've done and where I've gone. And it's been a great experience to allow that to happen, but it definitely hasn't always been easy. No, yeah, it's been really hard.
Yeah, yeah. So, can you think of a moment where you realized like I know you talked about how poetry you used that even while you were a child to just kind of have an outlet to, talk about what was happening in your life. Can you tell me about a moment, or was there a particular moment where you realized, I want to share this? Like, I don't want to keep this in. This has been a private, maybe more of a private thing for a while, but now I'm ready to share it with the world.
Yeah, okay, so it's kind of a wild experience, but so I was in Colombia recently, traveling with my family, and I was very triggered when I first got there. The last place that I experienced abuse was in a foreign country. And so this was the first time that I was in a foreign country again, and it was all of a sudden triggering me, and I couldn't have expected that to happen. So I was kind of going through the thick of it again, panic attacks, just like illness, all the things were coming up. And I woke up this one morning in my bedroom and I was like, am I supposed to be here? Like, do I need to run home? Like, I need to, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't want to ruin my family's time here. We're on vacation. It's the trip of a lifetime. Like, I need to figure this out. I felt like a black cloud on this, like, adventure, you know? And so I just was lying there and I was like, I need a sign. I need a sign to hold on. And two scarlet macaws within a minute flew directly towards my window and just like did this gentle turn and like glided by. And birds are like my favorite thing. I carry feathers around with me on my phone. And so I was just like, ah, okay, okay, I hear you. I hear you. I'm going to rein it in and do the work. And so I put on some healing frequencies in my room that day and I just started writing and it was all pouring out. And it was just, 20 pages later, I had my voice. And all of a sudden, that was when I felt like I had done that laying down of that shameful piece. And I was coming out of that journaling, out of that moment, being like, I did that. Like, I did that. I'm a warrior. I'm not a victim. I'm not a survivor. I did that. Look where I am. Like, look what I've done.
Mhm.
And so I actually was on cue to publish a children's book because I work with kids. And I went to my husband and I said, this isn't the book I need to be putting out. I need to put out my poetry. I'm like, I just found my voice. Like, it's right here. I have a lot to say. The book's done. I had it all mapped out in this journaling session. I had these four parts to my book, and it was the breaking, and it was the rise, and it was the radiance, and then it was the gathering. And I had
Mhm.
poetry for all four components. And I was just like, I need to have a meeting with my publisher. Like, I need to tell her we're making the wrong book. And so my husband was like, do it, like, do it, go for it. You're so right. And so I set up a meeting with her and I was like, I can't tell you what this is about, but I need to talk to you like now. And so we scheduled a meeting and we were in Cartagena at the time, which is one of the oldest cities in South America. And I really felt the energy there. We were right on the ocean. And so I had this meeting and I had my prologue and all my chapters written out. And I just pitched the whole thing. And she was like, this is your book. She's like, we're doing this. She's like, and the publication is called Fem Power Publications. And she wants to publish female voices and let their stories be heard. And this children's book was something she happened across and believed in, but this was actually more in line with what she wants to be putting out into the world. And so that all just clicked and then it was happening. And she was like, okay, your publication date is September 23rd. Can you submit your manuscript in like 2 weeks? And I was like, the book's already written. I've got it for you.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
after that meeting, I like literally ran out to the ocean and got right into the ocean and just like hugged my husband and was like, it's happening. Oh my gosh, it's happening.
Oh my goodness. Ah, that's so incredible. That is like, just such a beautiful and inspiring story of just like trusting yourself. I mean, that's a huge, huge win because I'm sure for so long, you were taught to not trust yourself and this
Yes.
intuition, this knowing that, no, this is it. Like, this might be so scary, but this is what I'm meant to do. And the fact that you could lay down that shame and just rise into your power and knowing, like, I'm ready. I can do this.
Yeah.
Like, that gives me chills. Like I just kept
Yeah.
getting chills in your story because that is what, yeah, that's what we live for, those moments. And it's
Mhm.
so hard that so many of us sensitive women, because of our conditioning and our shame, we miss these moments. We instead
Yes.
spiral and think, I can't trust myself. That I'm overreacting, or it can't be that easy. It
Yes.
can't be like we just we shove ourselves back down because we're
Yep.
so afraid. And that is why I'm creating this series to help us see, like, no, those moments, that is your moment. That is where you can trust your voice. That is where you can rise up. And you don't have to do it alone either. There's a community of us here that will surround you and will wrap our arms around you and lift you up because this is what we live for. The world really needs us to heal.
Yeah.
When we rise up in our purpose and in our power, we can heal the world.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame that you know, we have been taught to doubt that because I do
Yes.
believe that's why one of the reasons why our world is struggling so much.
Absolutely. That
Yeah.
ripple is undeniable. And, because of staying silent in my abuse at those moments, I have really devoted myself to an act of service and to be of service to people because I felt a lot of guilt around if they had done it again. Could I have prevented that from happening by being more vocal or being brave enough to say something? And so now I'm devoted to children in the work of mental wellness and a healthy toolkit so that they don't have to figure all that out in their 30s. And I am also working with women of sexual abuse one on one because that is service, that is paying it forward, and that is using that ripple to continue it outward, right? Into their
Yeah.
communities and into
Yeah.
their worlds.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that so much. And I find that so many of us, when we are able to trust ourselves again, we do feel that urge to do something.
Yeah.
I oftentimes have people reach out to me and say, I see all this suffering in the world. I see all of this hardship, all of these things, and I feel I don't know what to do. And my answer is always start small. Start with
Yeah.
one thing. Like that anxiety is prompting you to do something. And it
Yes.
doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be going out and changing the whole.
No.
We start small. And I love that you mentioned the ripple because all of us doing just one small thing creates an
Yes.
ocean of healing and just beautiful compassion. If we think, oh, it's just me, I can't do a whole lot, I don't know a whole lot, I don't have an outlet to do these things in a big way, then we're suppressing that. And we need
Yeah.
this ocean. We need all of us like coming together because I'm curious to know if this has ever been a struggle for you. Sometimes I do think I need to carry it all on myself. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
then get so overwhelmed and I'm like, this doesn't align. Like, I can't do
Yeah.
that. I want to empower and inspire other women to also do it. And part
Yeah.
of that, like you said, is teaching the next generation that you don't have to approach your emotions in such a shameful way and that the beauty within you needs to come out, whether
Yes.
people understand it or not, because that's how we break the stigma that, this softness is a weakness because it's
Yeah.
absolutely not.
Totally. Yeah. That people pleaser perfectionism, that was a really hard thing to break because you're you're feeling like you're letting people down or they won't like you or they'll think of you differently, right? And so finding my way into setting healthy boundaries that keep me from that burnout and keep me in my authenticity and in my power, it was tricky. Like I had to navigate figuring out how to say no and to be okay with that and to still feel confident that people will still, like me for me, or not putting everybody else in front of me. There was some times where my husband would say, like, at any given time, like, you're talking to 30 different women and helping them with their lives. Like, why are you not? And that wasn't paid work by any means. That was just me being there for everyone, but not being there for me? And so it did take a lot of like really like sinking into this idea of healthy boundaries and what does that actually mean and what does that actually look like. And I think my driving force for getting that right these days is my children. Like, I don't want them to see someone who puts everybody before themselves. I want them to put themselves first because that's okay. It's okay to take care of you, right? And it's not only okay, it's critical to your relationships. Like, now I show up way better for the people in my life than I did when I was cutting myself thin constantly, you know? And so it's hard, and it was uncomfortable, but it got me there. And I think I had some help with, like, the COVID thing that slowed everybody down, right? And so I did have some excuses to not be busy all of the time. And that was a good sort of segue into getting comfortable with stillness, because at that time I was on autopilot full pace, because I think that was also numbing, right? And keeping busy was giving me purpose. Well, if I'm helping others, I'm important, I matter, I'm worthy. And
Yeah.
so that stillness and having to get uncomfortable there for a minute and then figuring out, oh, this is helping, this is serving me, and really celebrating that was when it started to switch for me.
Yeah. So if you were speaking to a woman who is kind of still stuck in that, like, I have to perform, I have to constantly be giving, over giving to feel my worth, where would you tell her to start? What do you think would be a, not easy necessarily, but a simple way to just start experiencing that stillness and that self-trust?
So, something I often tell women that I'm working with is to take it a step further. So, for instance, if a woman is saying, I'm feeling really anxious right now, let's get curious about that, because anxiety is a messenger, right?
Mhm.
Anxiety is here to tell you something about yourself, something that you're not listening to. And so if you have anxiety, figure out, where do you think this is coming from? Why do you think it's coming up? And just ask questions. You don't have to have all the right answers, but the more curious that you can get about why the anxiety is present, I promise you, the more will come to light. And if you
Mm,
can even just steer your perspective in one slight new degree or direction, you will start to uncover things about yourself that maybe you didn't even know or that you've lost along the way. And I
mm,
think that the main thing is just to always go into the dark. Like, if it's uncomfortable, there's a reason it's uncomfortable. And
mhm.
there's a reason that you feel like that's hard to do. And that's probably the very thing you need to lean into, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Those emotions are there for a reason.
Yeah.
And we oftentimes, yeah, because we're stuck in the shame, we just try to get them away as quick as possible. We don't want, honestly, I think we're a little afraid of what we're going to uncover.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I love what you said about just even just like 1 degree. Just you can start really small, really gently.
Yeah.
We don't have to jerk ourselves back and forth. That doesn't feel good for us. And
Mm-mm.
that oftentimes leads us back to a place of overwhelm and, shame. And so I love that we can just start small and be
Yeah.
gentle with ourselves.
Yes, there was a time where I kind of got triggered by this buzzword of healing and the work, and it was just like, what do you mean? Like,
Mm,
what do you actually mean? It's so
hmm.
easy for someone to be like, we need to heal ourselves, but like, realistically, like, can you give me the steps? Because I don't
Yeah,
know what you mean? So yeah,
yeah.
starting small it's really important.
Yeah. So what does, and this might be a hard question to answer, but I'm curious what you'll say. What does healing mean to you? Like if you could explain it in just,
Yeah.
a simple way to someone who's like, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
What would you say that it is?
I would say that it's healthy emotional processing. I would say that it is having a place to channel your emotion where it is not being stored. It is being processed. It is coming in and being felt and moving through.
Mhm.
In my program, I created this 5 pillar system. And I truly believe that if you do one of these 5 things or a mix of all of them, that you will have healthy emotional processing. And those pillars are connection with other. So that's being vulnerable and really connecting. Creative expression. So whatever that means for you, that can be reorganizing your kitchen, that can be painting on a canvas, you know? Creative
Mhm.
expression is to whatever it is. Movement. Again, that can be walking around your neighborhood, that can be working out. Breath work. So that doesn't have to be formal, fancy, or anything. But if you do take breaths in between a stimulus, then you build yourself at least a 20-second reaction bubble. And so
Mm,
breath work is a huge one. And then space for self. What do you like to do alone? What refills your tank where you're not leaning or needing anybody else, but you're putting into something for you? And
mm,
if you can identify what your 5 things are, and you've got your toolkit, right, for how to take
mhm.
care of yourself and to how to heal and emotionally process in a healthy way.
I love that. I love how simply you lay that out. Again, I know it's not easy, and I know you would say that too, because this is really so much unlearning and deconditioning.
Oh,
We've been
yeah.
taught to respond to our bodies and the emotions we're
Yes.
feeling. And so it does take a lot of practice and a lot of time, but I love that you add in that connection piece because I could not agree more. I feel like connecting with other women like us who will also be using these skills and setting an example for us. And also, honestly, for me it's been healing seeing that other women also sometimes spiral into shame, but I can come alongside them and I can also know I'm
Yeah.
not alone, and we can just really be there for each other because yeah, we're going to have moments no matter how much we've healed. We're going to have moments where
Yes.
we kind of go back into our old ways a little bit and we feel like this is just too much. I can't do this. And having someone who can say, listen, you are human. It's okay to feel this
Mhm.
way. It's okay, to have a rough day and to be just kind of in it for a minute. Like we don't have to hurry it, right? I think
Yes.
it's so easy to think, even when we've done the healing, we're like, I should be through this. Like, I should not
Oh,
be
yeah.
feeling these emotions. I've got to hurry this up because I know this.
Right.
But that isn't, that's
Totally.
again the opposite of what we're trying to do. We've got to honor
Mhm.
that space. And I totally agree with breath work. To as simple as it is, it has saved me so many times, especially in
Oh, yeah.
motherhood, where I'm like, whew, I feel this rising up inside me, and I don't want to react the way that I know I will if I react
Yeah.
right now. And so just taking that time to just breathe and be with myself and ground myself before something comes out of my mouth has saved me so many times.
Totally.
Ah,
Yeah. And I'm not like, don't get me wrong, like I don't have it all figured out. And I don't think anybody does. Like we're always stumbling on these steps and we're always stumbling and striving for our best. And I think just trying to do your best is the whole point. Yeah,
mhm.
I refer to it as a forever becoming. Like it's not done, Like we're always just trying our best. And I
Yeah.
definitely have times where I can stop and laugh at myself and be like, oh, I'm not doing the thing. I'm not doing the thing I know
Mm,
to do.
yeah.
But if you can laugh at yourself and not hold yourself, in shame over that or be disappointed because you're human, then, you can
Mhm.
keep up and keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think for myself, for a long time, best meant perfect. And so
Mm-hmm.
that has been a huge, huge step for me that I still have to work through sometimes. And knowing my best does not equal perfect. My best will
Yes.
change, it will fluctuate. I mean, I have to allow space for that. How have you been able to do that in your life and understanding like doing my best does not mean I'm going to always have it perfect.
Yeah, so I would say again, I come back to my kids with this. There were some days when I was really in the thick of those dark times where I would spend a day crying in bed. And some of that mom guilt that we all know and love would creep in, and I would be like, what am I doing to my kids? Like, ugh. And the way I leaned into that was to actually just open up. I would invite them into my room and I would tell them, I'm feeling really sad today. And I think when I'm feeling really sad, I need to be just in bed, snuggled, warm. You guys are welcome to come in and snuggle, but I don't have anything to give today. You're going to need to make your own lunches. Dad's going to order dinner. Like, it's okay to be sad. And so I think in trying to show them that they too get space and time to lean into their emotions, that if I can model that to them, then it's not really like a bad thing to be not perfect that day, because I
Mhm.
don't want them doing what I did my whole life. Like, I did act like I was fine all the time when I never really was. And I think that performance stemmed from, if I had an emotion in my house as a child, that made my dad angry. That was a trigger for him, right? And so shoving those emotions away was what I was trained to do. And I want different for my kids. I am called to provide a different home experience than I had for them, and I will take that to the grave with me. That is just, my biggest goal in life for sure. And so I think just being honest and like letting everyone know where I'm at. I think there were times where I felt embarrassed to say how low or how bad I was feeling, or if I felt like I was failing in a moment. And now I'll tell anyone who needs to know. I'll tell anyone around me, because I think when you pass that on and let somebody in, that's when you give them the chance to understand you, or you give them the chance to hold space for you, right? So
Mhm.
canceling on a friend, I used to, make up a lie or an excuse. And lying was a big part of being a perfectionist, because you are trying to please people all the time, right? So I
Mhm.
can't message her and say, I'm just sad and don't want to come. I have to message her and say, oh, my son has this, this, and this, and now I can't come. But
Mhm.
once I leaned into the truth, I was met with support. And so each time that affirmed to me, okay, keep doing it this way, because people are going to show up for you if you let them. And I
Mhm.
think it was when I started letting people in that I realized my lack of perfect and me not being at my best welcome support. And receiving support felt weird. Receiving support felt uncomfortable. And I had a whole other down, dark time of learning how to do that and actually just receive that. And that comes from like a pit of worthiness, right? Like you need to feel worthy to receive that support back. So that was its own kind of lesson. But yeah.
Yeah. All of that is so beautiful because there are different layers and it's normal. It's normal to have those. Just because you think, there's just so many different layers, I'll never get to the bottom. Which I know, healing is a journey. It's something we continue our whole life, but there's so much freedom that comes with each layer. There's so much more
Yes.
self-awareness and peace. And, it keeps us going because we want to learn more about ourselves. We want to be able to understand. And we also want that deeper connection. So many of us as sensitive women want deep connections, but we're confused about how to get there, right? We
Yeah.
think it'll come through people pleasing and through keeping the peace, but in reality, we just end up feeling so empty and misunderstood because we have put up these fronts of, I'm perfect and I can't share this, or people will judge me or think something bad about me. And instead, when we are able to show up vulnerably, which is scary
Yeah.
for sure, but
Mm-hmm.
like, I love what you said that you started to feel more safe in it. You started to realize people will show up for me. People do
Mm-hmm.
want to know, like, have a peek inside of my soul and what's going on for me.
Yeah.
Because then that does allow them to hold that space for us. So many of us don't know how to hold space for other people. And I know it's because we have not allowed other people to have that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you specifically mentioned doing that with your children and like letting them come in and and just be with you in those moments, not saying I need to shut you out and I don't want you to see
Hmm.
me like this, but saying you
Hmm.
can come snuggle with me. And that would feel good for both of us to have that exchange of compassion and
Yeah.
just being there with each other and for each other. Because, yeah, that will go such a long way in their life of being able to show up for other people and also letting other people show up for them, right?
Yeah, I
It's
hope
that
so.
mutual exchange of just knowing that that's normal and that's healthy and good. I have one more question for you, and then we'll wrap this up. If you could go back in time and whisper something to your younger self who is struggling, who is feeling so alone and misunderstood and afraid, what would you want to tell her?
I feel for her. I sit with her a lot, my younger self. I really like to hold space for her and mother her in the way, parent her in the way that I wished I'd been parented. And I think I would just let her know like she's gonna move mountains and she's gonna lean in and she's gonna do all the things that she's dreaming up in that room of hers.
Mm, what kinds of things do you see her needing you to just whisper to her in the moments where she's maybe going back to that feeling of fear
Yeah.
or loneliness? What do you tell her now?
Um, I remember if I was really upset or something, I'd be sent to my room and I just remember crying alone a lot. And
Mhm.
so I oftentimes just remember or picture myself holding her and snuggling her while she cries and letting her know that her feelings are valid, that what she's feeling is absolutely justified and right and okay. I talk a lot to her about how her awareness, because I was always really aware, my dad trying to pull a fast one or sneak around or do these things. Like, I always knew what was going on, but I was being lied to or one thing or another. And so I just want to tell her, like, she's not wrong. And you have every right to be upset by this, and you have every right to feel what you're feeling. And, just that validation that I feel like I was really lacking in those times. I mean, my mom was a very strong anchor for me, and I do believe that she is the reason that I have the resilience that I have. But my mom was also in it. She was married to an addict and she was in the thick of that. And so while I was supporting her and I was trying to heal my dad, I felt like there wasn't an extra person for me. And so I like to be that extra person for her now when I
Mm.
can.
I love that so much. That's something a lot of us, I think, needed to hear as little girls. And so thank you for sharing that with us. So I do want you to talk about, you've hinted at it a little bit here and there, but your book I know is coming out this fall. And also, where can people find more of your beautiful poetry and connect with you? I'd love for you to just shout it from the rooftops, but all the
Thank
incredible things you're doing because you're so inspiring.
Thank you so much, Jess. So I just started my poetry page. It is at cry.with.me.sister. The idea is that when I first started leaning into what I'd been through, it was in my circle with my sisterhood. And that is a very non-judgmental, safe space. And so I was able to unleash there. And so this book for me, it was about providing another woman with sisterhood if they don't have it. It was about providing another woman with someone who would cry with them, who would allow them to be seen and heard in whatever they've been through. And so the book really feels like something that is not entirely for me, but for other, and I hope that it lands that way for other people. So that poetry page is just getting started. The book will be coming out on September 23rd of this year. You'll be able to find it like on Amazon and any kind of major places there. And I will be doing some events and travel for the book as well in the coming fall. The book will be called Cry With Me, Sister, We Rise at Dawn. Yeah, it'll be kind of this like you'll notice the cyclical nature. I've kind of paired it with the moon phases because we're always in a different phase, right? So The Breaking is a chapter of just what it sounds like, a full moon stuffed to the brim of pain and hurt. And then the Rise is coming out of that cloud, but still not really being sure what to do with yourself. And so that's where the moon starts waxing. Then we have the Radiance, which is the new moon, and it is feeling really good about herself. And that poetry is really fun to read. And then the final chapter, The Gathering, is the waning moon. And that is where you can lean into other and sisterhood and really find that togetherness and connection that can be so healing at times. So yeah, that's
Mhm.
the book, and I'm ready to share it. It's been a very wild ride of vulnerability hangovers and like, oh my gosh, I'm putting it out there. I thought no one was ever going to read these things, but it feels like it was meant to be. And I recently went to an ecstatic dance, and in the middle of the dance, I grabbed my journal and just couldn't stop writing. And it was the night before my book was going into the hands of my editor, and I was like, okay, this book came from a culmination of like 39 years of life experience. All of these things led me to this book. Like, it's supposed to be here, it's supposed to exist. And
Mhm.
so I feel that way about it now, and I feel ready.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. Again, just chills because this is just so beautiful, and so many women need to see, another woman like them doing these big, bold things, even when it's scary, even when you're like, I don't know what's going to happen, but you just feel so, so in line with your purpose and knowing that this is what you're meant to do. And I love so much that you're stepping into that. I hope you are so proud of yourself because, again, it's not easy, but it's so inspiring. One last thing, I do want you to share your page where you have resources for children because I always have people asking about that. And is that more for like parents, or is that more for people who are working with them in like a more of a professional setting?
So my other account is at kind.spirit.kids. So Kind Spirit Kids is a program that I created just over 10 years ago. And that looks like many different things. It has a lot of different faces. I do in-class sessions where kids come to class for several hours, and we explore those 5 pillars I talked about earlier. And that looks like introducing children to all different types of things within those 5 genres and seeing what sticks for each of them. And then I have virtual, which is a much smaller container where kids get to build connection with their peers. And it's kind of like a mini circle for kids where we explore feelings, but it's a really safe place. And it's a beautiful thing to see because every child is typically tapping in from their room, which is where they feel comfortable and protected. And they're being supported by kids at the same age, just like them. And so it ended up being a really beautiful thing born out of COVID.
Mhm.
And then I do one-on-one. And so when there's friction in a home, or people are finding that they're not aligning or bumping heads with children parent dynamics, I like to do this one-on-one work where I have sessions with children and then sessions separately with parents. And then we come together to find that flow. And that's typically just in understanding our differences and realizing maybe where we're trying to shove a square peg into a round hole. And so sometimes that just takes an extra set of eyes, right?
Mhm.
To just kind of have that outside view where you're not being so triggered and involved directly. And so, yeah, so I do all that work through Kind Spirit Kids. That was an effort, like I mentioned, to just provide the next generation with the tools from the start.
Mhm.
And for children, it's actually something we lose over time through that conditioning and through experience, is that mindfulness and that mental health awareness, because children are good at it. They're naturals. They know what they're doing. They know how to express themselves. And so typically it's adults and experiences with adults who kind of get them out of that natural instinctual flow to be there and understanding themselves. And so I'm really kind of the protector of that, and just letting them know like their power. And a big part of Kind Spirit
Mhm.
Kids is that everybody gets to be exactly who they are, show up exactly who they are. And, you know, sometimes at the start of a class, I'll have kind of something planned, but then it totally changes based on just the energy in the room that day. Or some kid might come in and say, my dog just died. And it's like, let's put everything away and let's do that for today. You know, how can we show up for this person? And so, yeah, it's just creating that place where it's really comfortable and safe to just own where, how you're feeling and where you're at, and that it's okay.
Yeah, I love that so much. I know there's so many of us that are, trying to break those cycles, and we really just need someone to kind of come alongside us and help us and validating, which direction we should go, because for so long we've been told, no, you need to be a certain way to be a good parent, but so much of that is just so misled. And so it's good to have someone who does understand. Hold on, no, there is a different option. There is a different way. And I love so
Yeah.
much that you have those resources, both for parents and for children, or for people that just work with kids a lot. Because I know, a lot of teachers and other people are struggling with knowing how to show up for these kids, but they know they need
Yeah.
to. So I love that so, so much.
I think
Well,
teachers need it like more than anyone these days. Like teachers are so overworked. Like I had a time where I was a teacher before having kids, and that's a hard job today. And so I've actually brought my program into schools and worked with kids there as well. And so that can also be an option of on the go because they need it too. They need to be supported.
yes, yes, they deserve the world. And I hate so
Mm-hmm.
much that they're on these front lines without the tools that they
Yeah.
need. And I know it's causing so many of them to burn out. And we've got to find a way to come alongside them and help
Yeah.
them. I know the system is stacked against them in some ways. So I totally understand people needing to step out of that space. But I also am like, if we can come alongside them and empower them, maybe things can start
Mm-hmm.
shifting for the better. So I love that so much. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation today. So much good stuff, so inspiring. I cannot wait to get your book when it comes out. And yeah, I just am so grateful that you are doing this, that you are following your purpose, because you are shining so bright, sister.
Jess, I really want to thank you for your presence online. It was one of the first places I would say on the internet where I felt like I truly belonged somewhere. The internet can be a wild place, and what you're providing for sensitive women is critical. It's essential, especially in a social media platform. And so I'm so grateful to you for doing the work to put this platform out there for women and for giving us a place to connect to each other and reach out to each other. It means the world to me. And I'm so glad that future females have this space and can lean into this when they're ready. And so thank you so much for doing what you do.
Thank you. That means a lot. And I couldn't do it without all of you. So I'm so grateful we can connect and we can inspire each other, because yeah, we've all been alone for far too long, and that's changing now. We are rising
Mhm.
up, and it's just so beautiful. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.